I'm Arjun, and I'll be presenting FPL, a new library for Pressburg arithmetic that accelerates polyhedral computation by optimizing for typical polyhedral workloads, and is now available directly in MLIR. Kunwar will be describing the state of FPL as it is in MLIR today and how you can use it. We already presented this work in a conference, but in this talk, we'll be talking in more detail about how you can use this today in MLIR. Pressburg arithmetic lays the foundations for polyhedral techniques like poly, the work on optimistic loop optimization in LLVM, tensor comprehensions by Facebook and others, and also, of course, MLIR. The MLIR dialect the affine dialect in MLIR provides an SSA-based IR that explicitly models affine loop nests for polyhedral loop transformations. All these works, except for MLIR, have used the integer set library ISL. ISL has been the state-of-the-art Pressburger library, and its development even involved coming up with novel algorithms for operating on Pressburger sets. Both ISL and FPL support full Pressburger arithmetic, and ISL by default uses scalar arithmetic for its operations, whereas FPL in the common case tries to accelerate by exploiting SIMD parallelism opportunities. ISL was a standalone C library, which did result in it being pretty portable. Like it was used in GCC, which was developed in C at the time, and it was also used in Poly, an LLVM subproject. However, as a result of being independently developed as a standalone library, it was not accepted by the LLVM community, and due to differing code style and etc. other reasons. Whereas with FPL, we went for a community-first approach, and we developed FPL in modern C++ in a fork of MLIR, and we have been actively upstreaming this into the upstream MLIR. So before we go into the details of the library, what is Pressburger arithmetic? So the basic building block here is the integer polyhedra, which is essentially a set of tuples of integers subject to linear constraints. So in this example, we have a set of pairs x comma y subject to the linear constraints 2x plus 2y greater equal to 1, 2x plus 2y less equal to 13, 3y less equal to x plus 9, and 10y greater equal to x. We also support what are called Pressburger sets, which are basically unions of these integer polyhedra. In practice, it just means that we support not only ANDs, but also ORs of constraints. We support the standard set operations on integer sets, like intersection, union, subtraction, complement, and also some operations that are important in polyhedral compilation applications, like emptiness checks and sampling, which are used for dependence analysis. For example, as we will see in the second half of the talk. Another operation we support is the coalesce, which simplifies set representations in order to accelerate the performance of other operations. So speaking about representations, we represent an integer polyhedron as essentially a list of constraints and not a list of points. So we basically have a constraint matrix where each row is a constraint and each column is a variable. And we also have an extra column to represent the constant term. Pressburger sets are unions of polyhedra, and so are essentially represented as a list of polyhedra that they are a union of. So in this representation, we can see that, let's say you have two input Pressburger sets and you want to compute the union of them. Taking union is basically amounts to concatenating the two integer polyhedra in the input. So here, so essentially this means we are popping over the constraints from the input rows to the output set. And we'll see that, in fact, most operations can be boiled down to the simple operation of copying rows. In order to optimize the library, we first created a benchmark that represents how Pressburger arithmetic is used in polyhedral compilation. So to do this, we ran the poly PPCG and Pluto compilers on polybench, and we extracted over 1 million test cases across different types of Pressburger set operations. And we saw two main characteristics that are relevant for us. The first is that most constraints have coefficients that are very small. So the typical constraint coefficient, in fact, 90% of the coefficients are just 0, and 99% of them are at most 512. And secondly, the dimensionalities of these sets are also quite small. So 90% of the dimensionalities are at most 10. So as we have seen, the number of columns in the matrix is the number of dimensions plus 1. So what this means is that we have a matrix where all the values are small, which means we can, for example, in the common case, we could use a 16-bit integer to represent the elements of the matrix. And the number of columns is quite small, say less than 16 in the common case, which means that we can treat each row as some sort of SIMD vector, allowing us to accelerate performance in the common case. However, in the worst case, when the dimensionalities become huge or the values become very large, we would need to use arbitrary precision arithmetic to maintain correctness. In fact, in polyhedral compilation applications, a subtle arithmetic overflow error, or I'm not sure what happened here. Yeah, sorry about that. So in fact, in the polyhedral compilation applications, if a subtle overflow error could in fact lead to silent miscompilation and must be avoided at all costs. However, there are some optimizations we can do while maintaining correctness. In fact, ISL itself comes with what we call an element-wise transposition optimization, where every integer can individually switch between being a 32-bit integer or an arbitrary precision integer. Essentially, every integer object is a C union of these two. And by default, every integer starts as a 32-bit integer and performs all operations on this fast machine 32-bit integer arithmetic with overflow checks. So in the rare case when an overflow does occur, what happens is it will silently fall back, transparently fall back to using arbitrary precision arithmetic and does maintain correctness. And since this should happen pretty rarely, it means that in the common case, we can use 32. ISL can use 32-bit arithmetic and be fast. However, this does come with some disadvantages. For example, we have to dispatch between using the integer as a 32-bit or an arbitrary precision object for every single arithmetic operation. So yeah, and also in the common case where you're copying constraints, as we're copying one row of a matrix to another, you can see in this loop here that we need to iterate through every element in the row and dispatch between which type of integer we have in this element, and this inhibits vectorization. In FPL, we initially went for what we call a library level transposition approach. What this means is that the entire library is templated on the integer type to be used. And what happens is the dispatch will happen at the high level operation. So for example, if you call into a union, what will happen is that the union will dispatch initially into the 16-bit version instantiation of the library. And after this initial dispatch at the top level, the entire library has been instantiated with the data type. So everything is known to be 16-bit. So for example, if you have a matrix, we know that all its elements are 16-bit integers. And therefore, if you had to copy a row from one to the other, we would know that they are all 16-bit integers and we can just do a SIMD copy. In the library level transposition approach, which is what we used in the initial implementation, we still had to handle overflows. And how we did this was we would run all the operations with overflow checks again. And when an overflow did occur, we would throw an exception. And this exception would be caught by the dispatcher, which would then smoothly fall back to the higher level of precision. And the 16-bit instantiation of the library was transparently vectorized. So whenever it was used, we would gain the benefits of vectorization. Of course, exceptions are not used in the LLVM repositories. And therefore, we are looking for alternatives as to how we can upstream this transposition approach. One idea we have from a previous work is to do the transposition at the level of matrices, but we are open to your ideas. So let's take a look at how we can optimize the library by looking at how different operations can be accelerated. So we already saw the union. Now let's look at intersect. Intersection, let's say we have two integer polyhedra and we want to get the intersection. Obviously, the intersection is the set that satisfies the constraints of both the inputs. So all we have to do is take the constraints from the input sets and copy both of them over into the output set. So this is basically copying rows from the constraint matrix, which you've already seen can be vectorized. Now let's quickly look at the emptiness check, where we want to check if there is an integer point satisfying the constraints of the set. To check if there are any rational or real points satisfying the constraints, it's pretty easy using linear programming by, for example, the simplex algorithm. So you can find out that x takes values only from, say, 0.8 to 4. And since we're concerned only about integer values, we know that the values are 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are all the possible values. And we can simply try substituting each of these in sequence and recursing to the next dimension. So for each of these possible values of x, we know that there is no valid integer value of y, and therefore the set must be empty. However, imagine if the set had been much longer. So if there had been 1 billion values of x possible, we would have to recurse through each of them in sequence, which could take a very long time. Fortunately for us, here there's a direction along which the set is very thin, which is the direction going up and to the left. And we can see that y minus x, in fact, takes only one value, which is 0. And if we consider the orthogonal direction after substituting y minus x equal to 0, we find that there are no other valid points. There's no valid point in the set. And in fact, it's a theorem that if the set is empty, then there is always such a thin direction. And we use the generalized basis reduction algorithm to find this, and this is already implemented in MLIR. So here we had to use linear programming, and we have shown in a previous work that linear programming using the simplex algorithm can be accelerated. So how linear programming works is you initially find a point x that satisfies the constraints, and then you keep performing what are called pivot steps, which keep the point satisfying the constraints while minimizing the objective value at that point. And when you can't do it anymore, you know that you minimized the objective. That was a geometric way of looking at it, but if you look at the implementation, it's basically like some kind of matrix transform, which can be vectorized once you have transposition computing, allowing the matrices elements to be integers. So let's look at the evaluation. We compare against ISL to see how good the library is performing. And one thing we notice is that ISL spends 35% of its runtime on test cases that FPL can run in only 16-bit integers, which means that transposition is very applicable to this problem domain. In fact, 99% of the runtime is spent in test cases that run in 64-bit integers. And we compare the speedups against ISL with arbitrary position. And what we saw is that ISL with element-wise transposition has a speed up of 1.5x for ISL with arbitrary position. And FPL has a speed up of 5.4x over ISL with arbitrary position and 3.6x over ISL with the element-wise transposition approach. Now on to Kunwar to discuss the state of FPL in MLIR today.
Thank you, Arjun. So FPL is directly being developed within MLIR. So every patch has been reviewed by the LLVM community members and contributions are always welcome. MLIR has support for both integer polyhedra and relations. In MLIR, flat-affine constraints implements integer polyhedra and Pressburger set implements unions of these. Similarly, flat-affine relation implements affine relations and Pressburger relation implements unions of these. Flat-affine constraints already existed, and we upstreamed support for flat-affine relation and Pressburger set along with additional operations for flat-affine constraints. Support for Pressburger relation is soon to be upstreamed. For sets and their unions, we have upstream support for intersection, union, subtraction, complement, emptiness checks, finding a sample, and currently we are upstreaming coalescing. As the rest of MLIR's analysis library, we currently use unchecked 64-bit arithmetic. As Arjun said, we are currently looking at ways to upstream transposition too. We have already upstreamed support for divisions and are upstreaming support for arbitrary existential quantification too. For relations and their unions, we support all operations that are already available on sets. Along with that, we also support some more operations. Out of these extra operations, we have already upstream support for composition and inverse, while we have implemented lexicographic minimization and maximization over relation, but we have not yet upstreamed this. We will be soon. Now let's move on to an example where FPL is actually used in MLIR for optimizations. One such example is loop fusion pass, where we use it for checking interloop dependencies. So here is an example of IR where we try to find dependence between the statement S0 and S1. To do this, we build access relations for each statement. Now, access relations are relations from statement iterations to memory locations. For this iteration statement S0, we build this access relation I to X. We first add the iteration bounds, that is I is greater than equal to 0 and I is less than 4, and then the access constraints, I is equal to X. Similarly, we build an access relation for S1, which comes to be j to y, first the loop bounds, j is greater than equal to 0, and j is less than 4, and then the access constraints, y is equal to 3 minus j. After this, we take the inverse of the access relation of S1, which gives us which is a swapping the domain and range of the relation. After this, we compose the access relation of S0 with the inverse of access relation of S1, which gives us a relation from statement iterations of S0 to those of S1, which access the same memory locations, which is essentially the dependence constraints, which come here to be I to j. I is greater than equal to 0 and I is less than 4, and j is greater than equal to 0 and j is less than 4. Then the access constraints I is equal to 3 minus j. Now you can use this dependence relation to check if S0 and S1 actually depend on each other, which can be done by using the emptiness check, right, as shown in the code, has dependency. You can also use these constraints to check legality of the fusion after the fusion has been done. The dependence constraints should hold even after the fusion has been done. Another place where we use FPL and loop fusion pass is checking if the producer can be removed. So let's say we have this input on the left side, which we pass to the loop fusion pass. There are two loops in this. The first loop is the producer loop, and the second loop is the consumer loop. In the producer loop, we copy data from the first array and first memref and store it in the second memref. And in the consumer loop, we take out that data from the second memref and put it in the third memref. Passing it to the loop fusion pass, the producer loop fuses into the consumer loop, and we get this one loop which reads from the first array, first memref, and outputs it to the second memref and the third memref. Another example where we change the input slightly. In the consumer loop, we take only even indices, adding a step 2. Now, we see that the consumer loop and the producer loop do not visit the same iterations. So here, the producer loop fuses into the consumer loop, but we cannot remove the producer loop because we need to maintain program correctness. The writes to the memref should not go away. So how do we check actually if the producer loop can be removed? What we do is we build the set of iterations that the producer loop visits as well as for the fusion loop. For producer loop, this comes at PS is equal to I is greater than equal to 0, and I is less than 100. And for the fusion loop, the same thing, I is greater than equal to 0, and I is less than 100. And then we just check if the fusion loop set is a superset of the producer loop set. If so, then we can remove the producer loop. As shown in example 1, we do this and remove the producer loop because it was a superset. For example 2, we cannot do so because we have an additional constraint on the fusion loop set that the iterations must be even. So since it's not a superset, we cannot remove the producer loop and it must stay. Now, how do we actually do this in code? Is shown here. We create two Pressburger sets corresponding to the producer loop set and the fusion loop set. We take the difference and just check if they're empty.
So to conclude, we saw FPL, a fast Pressburger library that uses transposition computing to achieve a speed up of 5.4x or ISA with arbitrary position, and 3.6x for ISA with the element-wise transposition approach. We saw that transposition is highly applicable to this problem domain, as 99% of test cases can be run in only 64-bit. And we described how FPL can be used in MLIR today. And we all encourage you all to try it. And Thank you, and let's discuss.
Thank you both for this nice presentation on Pressburger arithmetic and the Pressburger library. Just a reminder to everyone, please ask a question in the not in the chat, but in the box next to it. Maybe to get started, you introduced those low-level Pressburger arithmetic. There is already a polyhedral compiler in LLVM in the form of Poly. Is this like, do you intend to reuse this? Like, is there a refactoring opportunity? Is there a future of collaboration with Poly and more development in this direction?
So we plan to re-implement polyhedral infrastructure on top of this new library. I think it would probably be, I mean, the goal is that because this is integrated into MLIR, it should be really easy to use it in MLIR. Using it in Poly, I'm not sure. It could be possible if we, essentially, we have to create some sort of interface to a Pressburger library and then write an implementation where it can call into ISL or FPL or something. But the goal is that future polyhedral development in MLIR should use FPL, and we would probably re-implement those things rather than trying to port old stuff.
Okay, thank you. We have a question from the chat. Narasinga is asking about some insight on the fusion of nested loop instead.
Kunwa, do you want to address that?
So what we wanted to show here is like how you can remove the producer loops if using FPL, but you can. I think there is more to loop fusion than what we explained. We just wanted to show how FPL can be used in a particular case for some optimization heuristic. I do not have much idea about what you are asked, like about the loop fusion paths in general. But
okay. Do you know of other projects that are currently using ISL that could be using FPL instead? Like, and also, is it easy to integrate this new FPL library without stacking the entire MLIR LLVM infrastructure? Like, is it fairly decoupled from MLIR?
I think it is pretty coupled with LLVM. The point was to cater to LLVM and MLIR specifically. I have been speaking with some people in the industry who seem interested to move their polyhedral infrastructure from ISL to start using it, to start using FPL and MLIR. So I'm not sure what the current state of those efforts is, but I think we'll start seeing that soon.
Okay. Maybe you can expand on how coupled it is. You said it is coupled to LLVM right now, right?
It is, I mean, so we developed it in a fork of LLVM, and we've been upstreaming it into the MLIR project. So I would say the right place to use it would be upstream, because the fork is a scientific project and was developed rather quickly and may not be the best place to use it from.
I guess the question is less in terms of location, as in which repository we have to clone, but more in terms of code structure. Is it like a separate library that we can build as a standalone artifact and link to it in my project without linking the rest of MLIR? Or using this library requires to use an MLIR context, MLIR data structure, and things like that?
So we use like LLVM data structures like small vector, array ref, and stuff. So if you're willing to take a dependency on those, then it could be possible, I guess. But like right now, the thing is that at the moment, the flattifying constraints, which is the integer polyhedra, It comes in, it has two versions. There is star-defined constraints, and there is another one called star-defined value constraints. And the star-defined value constraints can bind an MLR, I think it's part of MLR, the MLR value. Kunwar, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So yeah, so that particular part, I think, depends on MLR or the larger area, but I mean, that could easily be separated out to create
Just as a thing that I did plan to separate out the math from the IR dependence, and maybe it should be possible. It would be possible in future. I did have plans to refactor this out. So someone could, without using MLR context or any of the MLR values, could use FPL just for the math parts and using the small vector and array references, etc. But currently it's not possible, but maybe in future. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. It seems that we reached the end of the questions from the audience. So maybe we're gonna stop there. Thank you again, both of you, for this walk, for upstreaming all of this, and for your contribution, and for presenting today. And I wish everyone a good time for the rest of the conference.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.